Hi friends, hope you're all well. I realized that after making a few videos with examples of words to use instead of very, I still hadn't provided a few examples of words instead of very that you might find useful when you're preparing for your IELTS exam. These examples weren't words that were specifically positive or negative. They were just words that would actually add a bit more variety to your responses in your IELTS exam. Let's have a look today at some more examples of words you can use instead of very to add to your vocabulary. Like I said in the previous videos, these examples here are to make you move from a band 5 all the way up to a band 8 or band 9 in your exam. And using such a variety of words will lead you to, as the band descriptors say, using a vocabulary with full flexibility and precision in topics. Let's now get to the words we're going to consider and alternatives you can use.
Looking at noisy, an example of a sentence you may have is, the highway near our house was very noisy. You could replace that with the sentence, the highway near our house was deafening, or the highway near our house was loud. Next, if you had a sentence like, our family was very open with each other, this would then become, our family was transparent with each other, or it could be, our family was clear with each other. Let's look at rich. An example of a sentence you would have would be, we lived in an area which was very rich. This would then become, we lived in an area which was wealthy, or we lived in an area which was affluent, or we lived in an area which was well off. Next up, if you had a sentence like, I was very shy at a young age, you could replace it with, I was timid at a young age, or I was bashful at a young age, or I was sheepish at a young age. Instead of, that was an example of very complete work, you could use, that was an example of comprehensive, or thorough, or exhaustive work. With the word pale, the sentence could have been, I was scared and turned very pale, and would then become, I was scared and turned ashen, or I was scared and turned sallow. Next up, if the sentence was, traveling overseas will be very exciting, this would then become, traveling overseas will be exhilarating, or traveling overseas will be thrilling, or finally, traveling overseas will be breathtaking. Let's look at big. An example of a sentence you would have would be, we had a very big tree in our yard. Instead of that, you can use, we had a massive tree in our yard, or we had a colossal tree in our yard. And finally, you could also use, we had a gigantic tree in our yard. Finally, let's take a look at heavy. My first job had me lifting very heavy items. This would become, my first job had me lifting weighty items, or my first job had me lifting hefty items. And finally, it could also be, my first job had me lifting massive items.
These are a few examples of words you can use instead of adding very to words that you already know. I'll include a comment below with an example of a sentence I used recently without using the word very. Comment below with an example of a sentence where you did the same. If you can't think of any, include a sentence below which has the word very, and I'll try and give you a word to use instead of it. I hope you enjoyed today's lesson, and I look forward to seeing you guys again next time.